I've had this particular live stream in my mind for a long time. This here. I should explain what I'm here to do today. So, this in front of me is my big, grand emulation project that I've been working on for about a year and a half now. And even before then, I've been flirting with the idea of getting started on Twitch. I never really knew what to do to get started. I didn't really feel like doing what a lot of people do, which is just play the latest AAA games, or do sort of play horror games and overreact to all the jump scares and stuff, or play online shooters or whatever it is people do nowadays. I kind of always wanted to do something unique, and it was when I really started to get into Launchbox and building this massive archive of retro games that finally clicked for me. Finally realized, this is my in. This is what I should do on Twitch. So I should play lots and lots of old retro games. So Launchbox, for those who don't know, it's a front end piece of software, free piece of software, I should add. So if anyone here likes what they see and feels like giving it a go, they can. And you can quite easily as well. You can easily get started. It takes, like I say, this particular collection I've got here, this 25,000 ridiculously sized collection. Like I say, I've been working on this for like a year and a half, but I haven't been working, not constantly over that time, as I've had like long periods away from it, but I have sunk the hours in. But that said, I don't want anyone who likes the look of this, anyone who wants to get more involved with emulation or feels like building their own Launchbox setup, don't let that discourage you. Don't feel overwhelmed, because a lot of that time I spent, honestly, the majority of it was research. It was just me reading, sifting through endless like Reddit threads and forum threads, trying to figure stuff out. A lot of just trial and error. A lot of watching YouTube tutorials. A lot of just looking at other people's Launchbox setups and their collections and stuff, and kind of just get some ideas, see if I can get some inspiration for my own sort of collection and project. So basically what I'm saying is, if anyone watching this wants to get started with this, just do it. And if you get stuck on anything, or if you're unsure on anything, or if you have any questions, please just message me. I'll be more than happy to talk about this, because this is my new favorite hobby now, is just getting into emulation, getting old games working. And so as well as a front end for displaying and presenting all your old games, obviously it's a launcher as well, hence the name Launchbox. So I could double click on any of these games right now and it will launch you right into the game. And it's designed to remove all the fuss of opening individual emulators and trying to find specific files. It's all imported in here, and it does all that sort of work for you. You can double click on any game, and if you set it up right, it will launch that game into your emulator straight away. And most of these games also are running through RetroArch. So for those who don't know, RetroArch is another front end for emulators. So instead of so I've got 50. Actually, I think I've got about over 60 now. 60 different platforms. I'm going to go over in a little bit. But the majority of them are running through RetroArch rather than like standalone emulators. RetroArch is a all-in-one sort of platform slash front end where you can download emulators onto it, and it keeps all the emulators in one place. So, for example, DuckStation is a popular PS1 emulator. You can go on RetroArch. You go on RetroArch and you can browse through the different emulators they've got. So you can download the DuckStation core. They call them cores, but they're emulators. Or Dolphin, obviously, is the main GameCube and Wii emulator. You can download the Dolphin core. So the majority, and RetroArch like integrates really nicely into Launchbox, so it's highly recommended if you ever want to get into Launchbox. Get RetroArch along with it. Like Launchbox, it's free and it's pretty simple to navigate and learn your way around if you're new to it. There's some exceptions, like since I mentioned Dolphin, actually, like the Dolphin core within RetroArch, it's not bad. It's getting better all the time, but it's not matured enough yet where it's not quite as good as the standalone Dolphin emulator. So some games will work on it, some games won't. Whereas the actual Dolphin emulator, the standalone emulator, is pretty much flawless. It runs any game you throw at it. So in those cases, I've kind of just set Launchbox up to just launch actual Dolphin rather than RetroArch. But and before I move on, just also the other appeal with RetroArch as well is it's got a unified settings menu. So I play the majority of these games with DualShock. I run DS4 Windows, so that and for those who don't know, DS4 Windows is a bit of software that disguises your PlayStation controller as an Xbox controller. The reason I do that is because Xbox controllers are generally more compatible with a lot of these systems. DualShock, standalone DualShock is support is getting better to the point where actually I think a lot of RetroArch stuff you can just connect your DualShock via Bluetooth without having to use anything like DS4 Windows now, and it'll work. But there's a few exceptions to that, so that's why I still use it. And also, I have like actual Xbox controllers that I don't use often with this PC, but I can use them. So it's like if I disguise this as an Xbox controller, it's like I don't have to change all the bindings and all the settings when I'm using an actual Xbox controller. So with all that said, let's get into it. So I've got 5 sort of main categories here. And I think it'd be most appropriate to start with consoles. Let's face it, this is where the majority of the good stuff is. If anyone who thinks retro games instantly thinks old Nintendo stuff, PlayStation, Sega, and that's obviously all in this category here. And if we go to, let's start with NES. So I'll explain what my approach to this collection, because I've handled a lot of these platforms differently. In the case of cartridge-based systems like this, like the NES, the SNES, N64, Sega Mega Drive, even the like Game Boy stuff. We'll get into handhelds in a bit. For all the cartridge stuff, generally cartridge-based systems, the file sizes are really small, especially back on the NES. To the point where you can have a full NES library within minutes. You can go on the Internet Archive, find a full NES ROM set, and have it again, like I say, just downloaded within a few minutes. You can also have Launchbox download and set up in a few minutes, and you can just do what I did, which was chuck the whole ROM set in. I think this is a no intro ROM set. I'm pretty sure. No intro is generally what you want to go for. They're usually, for most systems, like top tier ROM sets, and they're pretty easy to find. So, depending on who you are and what you want from your Launchbox setup, you're either going to do what I did, which is chuck the whole lot in, all the games and the kitchen sink, and just have an instant library. It's the quickest and easiest way to do it. But there's also another reason why I did it that way, which I'll go into in a sec. Or you might want to go for a more curated approach. You might download a full ROM set, or you might download the games individually, and you might go through those files and just throw in the games you love. Throw in Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Mega Man, maybe some other NES games that you've always wanted to play, and start there. And that's perfectly reasonable. Or somewhere in between, where maybe you want a full ROM set, but you want to start with a lot of games, but you don't want a lot of the baggage that a full ROM set comes with. I mean, straight away we're just at the top of this collection here, and you can already see there's a lot of unlicensed stuff and a lot of homebrew. Like, you can straight away see 3D Block, whatever that is. Yeah, it says here. These file names, if it says UNL, it means it's unlicensed. There's a lot of like Asian unlicensed games. It seems like back in the NES days there was a big piracy scene. So over there, and just scrolling down, you can kind of see like it's a bit messy. There's a lot of stuff that, let's face it, it's going to be kind of shit, or just not even worth the time. I mean, like, what the hell is that? Adam and Eve, another unlicensed game. So I kind of struggled with this. I kind of thought, well, what do I want to do here? Because I don't want a lot of garbage in my collection, but at the same time, I want to be really open-minded and discover a lot of games. And in the end, I went with this approach because, like I was saying, back near the beginning of this project, when I really started getting into this stuff, when it finally clicked that this could be my way into streaming, I thought one crucial thing I didn't mention is that Launchbox has a random feature. So there's a keyboard shortcut you can press, and it will select a game at random for you. And as soon as I discovered that, I thought, that's perfect. That is what I want for a Twitch stream. That is kind of not too unique. I'm sure there's a lot of people doing it, but that's something interesting I could do. And crucially, like something fun I could do. Just that random element, just having the machine decide on a game for you. And just gradually go through this whole library, warts and all. Go through all these games, and I can, if there's anything I really don't like, I can just delete it and never have to play that game again. So basically, for the majority of cartridge systems, I've chucked the whole lot in for the sake of the stream. And it's something, obviously, like I say, it's something I'm going to gradually fix and refine over time. And that's something else I should mention as well, is like this Launchbox setup I've got here is far from complete. In a sense, I don't know if it'll ever be quote unquote complete. And that's not only because I've got a lot of work cut out for me in tidying up this library, really deciding what games I want in it, going through all the games, deciding what's good and what needs to go. But also just because of the nature of emulation, like a lot of these emulators are improving every day. The compatibility lists for all these emulators is getting bigger every day. Again, these old systems I'm starting with here that I'm talking about, the cartridge-based stuff, the majority of it's like has 100% compatibility. I'm pretty sure you can play pretty much any NES game you want. I think at this stage you can play pretty much any Nintendo game you want. Even the Nintendo Switch has already got like a perfect Actually, I'm not entirely sure how good it is because I haven't tried it. But from what I hear, it's like it's already made a lot of progress to the point where a lot of the library is running, if not all of it. And that goes for the NES, SNES, GameCube, and Wii. N64 is maybe the exception. It's not 100% yet. Let me just click on another. Just move to Super Nintendo here. Yeah, Nintendo 64. It's almost there. It's got a little bit more work cut out for it. But the cool thing about N64 is there's a lot of different emulators. So if you happen to run into an N64 game that doesn't work fully, or maybe it has some weird like graphical glitches to it, you could just try another emulator and chances are you'll find an emulator that it works perfectly with. So I'm pretty confident that across all the emulators, like, and the majority, if not all, the N64 games are working perfectly. And here's my SNES library again. Nearly 2,000 games here. Obviously includes a lot of unlicensed stuff and homebrew stuff. Having said that, I think this is a lot. You can see this is a lot cleaner than the NES library. N64. This is really cool because N64, despite being a 3D system, again, it's a cartridge-based system. So while these file sizes are quite a bit bigger than NES and SNES, it's really not unfeasible to have a full library if you've got the space. I think this library is not the biggest library as well, which helps. You see, I've got about 400 N64 games in here, and I think this all, going from memory here, I think this all amounts to about 4 gigabytes, which is pretty good considering. Again, you're getting 400 3D games. Now, actually, let's go to Atari because you can see here I've only got 100 Atari games here. So there's some exceptions to the rule that I've set of cartridge-based systems and importing the whole library in. And that is, and this is a personal thing, but when we go to systems like this, like the Atari 2600, that's older than the NES, it becomes a bit too far removed to me, where I don't have nostalgia for this system. I played a few Atari games, maybe via emulation or some of those, Atari compilations and collections they put out sometimes. Um, but I've never really played the system. I haven't really played. To be honest, I never really played the NES. I never had one growing up or anything like that. Didn't have a Super Nintendo either. I grew up with the Mega Drive actually, and even that wasn't mine. It was my grandparents. That was like my in when it came to gaming. But anyway, yeah, when you go beyond, when you get earlier than the NES, um, these old Atari systems, these old computer systems, which I've got a lot of in this category here, which I'll go over later. I don't have the nostalgia to them. They're very old. A lot of them, let's face it, a lot of them are quite primitive. I'm very open when it comes to exploring new systems and old games. That doesn't bother me, but at the same time, I didn't want to have hundreds and hundreds of games that um, that I wouldn't like. I want my, for systems like this that I've yet to like dig my claws into. I kind of want my first impressions of it to be positive, and that's why I just, for systems like this, I just looked up. I went online, looked up the top 100 games, and looked at top 100 lists, and just went by that and just chucked 100 games per system in. Obviously, I'm going by someone else's judgment there, but it seems like the best solution. And I figure, like, once I've got a taste of, say, Atari 2600, and I've played like a good amount of these games, eventually I'll get curious and I'll be like, oh, I want to experience more games. I want to discover more, and that's where I'll gradually start adding more games to it. So it's two like almost opposite approaches there. I know it's weird, but it makes sense in my weird brain. But yeah, consoles like this that I have some nostalgia for. I was saying as well, like I didn't grow up with an NES, but I obviously have played a lot of NES games, whether that's through the Nintendo's Virtual Console or compilations or ports or what have you. I've played the old Mario's and Zeldas and Metroid and Mega Man's. I'm a big Mega Man fan. I've played a lot of the greats. I've still got a lot of games I need to dig into, but I've got enough experience with the NES where it's like, all right, let's have the whole library. Yes, I was saying two different approaches. So got systems like this where it's like, let's have everything and work our way down. Let's slowly cut it down, delete games, and stuff like older stuff like Atari, where they start with a small amount of really good games and build it up. Like I say, this is a project that's like very much still in progress. So, and of course, I got the 5200 and the 7800. Let's jump to a disc-based system then. Let's go to the PlayStation. Now, when you get to disc-based stuff, it's not really feasible to have a full library. I haven't mentioned yet, I'm running all of this on a 5 terabyte hard drive. You don't need that much space unless you want like a really comprehensive collection like I've got. I mean, I haven't even filled up this drive yet. I've still got, I think about 600 gigabyte left to fill. And even then, there's a lot of like crap on this drive that I can delete. So I could have up to like a terabyte of space I could use. It's a silly amount of space, is what I'm saying. So, and you definitely don't need to go that big, unless again you want to go all in. You want to spend a long time building this thing, like I have. But a terabyte or even 500 gigabytes you can fit. You'll be surprised how much you can fit on a hard drive that's a fraction of the size of what I got. I mean, so with the PS1 library, technically I could have the full library on this 5 terabyte drive, but it would take up more than half of that space. I'm pretty sure. I think, again, going off memory, I think the full PS1 library, and that includes multiple regions, like having the European, US, Japan versions of every game. I think amounts to about 3 terabytes. So I could, like I say, technically have that, but it would mean I wouldn't have any space for like all this other great stuff. So reasonably speaking, when it comes to disc-based stuff, this is where you have to get a bit picky, but not even that picky, because it just means you've got to download the games individually rather than a full ROM set, which is what I've done. And it takes time to build a big library like this. So I've got 522 PS1 games in here. But if you're anything like me, picking out free games is really fun. Like this whole thing, building this library has been really fun. A really fun project for me. And no matter what size drive or computer or laptop you're dealing with, you can still fit hundreds of these games and in your Launchbox. This is more. Just this PS1 library alone is probably more games than I'll ever need in my life. And the best part is I'm not even done building it. I'm still, all the time I'm going through like YouTube videos. I follow a lot of like retro game channels, discovering new games, downloading them all the time, and just throwing them in, adding them in. PS2, probably my biggest disc-based collection. I've got 920 games here. And again, I could easily push that up to 1,000, I reckon. Like, easily. It wouldn't even take much effort. There's still a lot of games that I know that I need to add and import here. And there's still loads to be discovered. PS1 and PS2 were very popular systems, as you know, and with very big libraries. As you can see, loads of games. Have a drink. Don't usually drink on Sundays, but you know, this is a special occasion. This is my first ever Twitch live stream. It just goes on and on. But GameCube. Nice thing about GameCube is I think, if I'm remembering correctly, like a lot of GameCube games are actually quite a bit smaller than PS2 file sizes, so you can fit a lot of these games on. I just noticed as well, I've got 364 GameCube games. If I just get one more, I've got one GameCube game for every day of the year. And again, like I was saying earlier, great thing about GameCube is you got the Dolphin emulator, which runs pretty much all of these games like flawlessly. Then you got the Nintendo Wii, which also runs through Dolphin, and pretty much all of these also run flawlessly. And the beautiful thing about this is you can get yourself a dolphin bar, which is what I've got. I've got it set up in front of me, which is you know how the Wii had it came with the sense bar, which is what you use to use motion controls and pointer controls for the Wii remote. Dolphin bar is basically that, but it's a USB device that you can plug into your PC. It works. It's very easy to use, very easy to set up, and you can literally play all these Wii games with Wii remote and nunchuck, just like how it's intended. And it's very, like I say, it's very easy to get working. And I would say this is, I really love the Wii, and I would say because I can have that genuine experience. Arguably, you could say an even better experience than playing on original hardware because you can upscale all these games into HD, and it looks great in Dolphin. So I think I would say this is the library. This and PS2 probably, but this is one of the libraries where I'm most excited to like dive into. I played a lot of Wii back in the day, but there's tons of games. It's funny for a console that was like insanely popular, sold gangbusters. Um, People write it off as a casual system, but it just happens to be home to like tons and tons of like really obscure stuff. You can just see here, Pandora's Terror. That's a brilliant game. Okami, brilliant game. Poker Park, I kind of forgot that even existed. Punch Out, not enough people talk about that. Has the best version of Resident Evil 4 on it. Yeah, it has so many like hidden gems on this system. But anyway, getting a bit distracted. So, Xbox, just to round out the big three: Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft. So, sadly, unfortunately, for those who don't know, Xbox emulation compared to its rivals, compared to GameCube and PS2, is very behind when it comes to emulation. There's a very small amount of compatible games, which is why you can see here I've only got 42 games here, and they're all a bit random. They're not necessarily the top 42 games you would think on Xbox, and that's because, yeah, it's still being worked on. It's getting better all the time, and to be fair, this collection of games I think I put together like a year ago. Like I could probably check in. I should probably check in soon with the Xbox scene again because I think it's made a lot of like headway in recent years, and it's still going. So there's probably like a slew of like new games that are compatible now, but and you probably noticed as well, I don't have Xbox 360 or PS3 in this list, even though you can emulate those systems. That is something I am gonna try out soon and probably add to this Launchbox. The thing is, those were low priority for me when putting this whole thing together because, one, again, newer systems, so you got the compatibility issue. PS3 is actually doing pretty well, but Xbox 360 has got a long way to go. I mean, original Xbox has got that's this is a system that's like over 20 years old now, and it's still being worked on and improved. As you can imagine, 360's in an even worse state. So there's that, but there's also the fact that when you get into the HD era of consoles, it's the file sizes just skyrocket, and you're looking at least like 20 gigabytes per game. So what I wanted to get all the older systems set up first, and then see how much space I was left with. And like I say, as it turns out, I've actually got a lot of space left over. So I'm pretty sure soon I will dive into those systems. I'm pretty sure PS3 emulation is not even that easy, not even that difficult to set up and get into. So I'll probably do a future update on this on my Launchbox, and I'm sure I'll have PS3 and 360 games at some point. Maybe Nintendo Switch as well, because like I say, a lot of those games are already compatible now as well. Wii U is another one I haven't got into because it's obviously I love the Wii U, but it's like everyone says, it has a very small library, and a lot of those games have been ported to Switch, so it's not the biggest priority in that sense. But also, there isn't a way, unless there's been like some big changes or advancements that I haven't heard about. I don't think there's a way to connect your Wii U gamepad to the PC, so you're and a lot of the appeal that console and a lot of its games was the fact that you had this unique touchpad control over the gamepad. So you would be missing that element. I'm more invested in hacking my actual Wii U than getting Wii U stuff running on here, but I'm sure it's something I'm going to explore at some point. I'm thinking like something like New Super Mario Brothers U, which is just literally a straight up 2D platform on which you don't really need the gamepad to enjoy. That might be good to have, but like I say, got my work cut out for me. There's a lot of stuff I still want to add and improve to this collection. But yeah, and just to round out consoles, like you can see, I've got a lot of like more obscure systems in here. I've got the 3DO, Jaguar, ColecoVision, Fairchild Channel F, which I've never heard of until recently. This is quite a late edition. Vectrex, Odyssey 2, Intellivision, TurboGrafx, Famicom, Virtual Boy. I did mess with Nintendo's Satellaview emulation as well, which I did get working, but so for those who don't know, Satellaview was a Japan only Nintendo system, which it was a very early example of like live, almost like playing online, playing games online, because you had to, from what I understand, you had to tune in, you had to play at certain times of the day. It was almost like a radio station. You had to play at certain games at certain time of the day, and it would broadcast sort of audio and commentary while you play. So, for example, on the Satellaview, there's a remake of the original Legend of Zelda with like SNES style graphics, which I'm really keen to play, and I actually did give it a bit of a go, but it's complicated because you have to. It's not very straightforward to emulate because you've got to set up the times. All of it's in Japanese as well, which doesn't help. So again, something maybe to look into for the future, but haven't included it in the setup currently because it's just a bit too much of a faff. Super Graphics, CDI, 32X, Sega CD, Dreamcast, got Neo Geo systems, got the Japan only Sega's first ever console, which not a lot of people know about, the SG-1000. And I just before we move on, actually, while we're on the topic of consoles, to enhance the experience, let me just switch screen here. There we go. To enhance the whole experience, I've got collection of controllers. So I've got. Let me just have a drink first. So I've got the Nintendo Switch controllers. um, which are obviously intended to use on Nintendo Switch, but because they're Bluetooth, you can obviously use them on a PC. So I can play the entire NES library the legitimate way with an actual controller. I've got the NES, got the SNES controller. It's the holy grail of this collection of controllers here, because still to this day, how long has it been since this controller came out? At least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I'm gonna say at least 2 years since it got announced, and it's still not in stock. I think there was like, I think it came back in stock like early this year for obviously probably about like 20 minutes before it all sold out again. And these are very hard to get hold of. I'm not proud of this, but I had to get mine off a scalper on eBay. So these retail for about 40 quid, I think. I paid 80 quid for mine, so it's double the price. Which, I hate that I had to do that. Like, usually I'd never do it in principle. We all hate giving money to scalpers, but I really wanted it. But also, I don't regret it, because here's the thing, like, most people who buy these, most people who want these, they want it for the Nintendo Switch, for the collection of Nintendo Switch Online games, which is probably about like 20 games. I know I don't keep up with it. I don't really use Nintendo Switch Online. I definitely don't have that premium version of it with the N64 games, but it's probably around 20 Nintendo 64 games, right? Maybe there's more now because they're slowly adding more, and maybe they'll keep adding more. 20. Let's say, let's be generous. Say maybe there's 30 games on Switch. I've got 400 here on this Launchbox setup. So already it's that. Even though £80 is just too much for any controller, it's worth it in a way for me. Because I know I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this. I've really enjoyed using it so far. Like, to me, more than any other system, I would say the controller is almost crucial to the experience. You can obviously enjoy a lot of games using a like standard control pad, like the DualShock or even the Switch Pro controller. You know, you can connect that to the PC as well, but it's not quite the same. The Nintendo 64 controller, I know it has its haters, but it's such a unique controller, and it really adds to the experience. And I've had such a good time. And the small amount of N64 games I've played so far have really just been so much better. Just being able to pick up this pad again for the first time in 20 years, you know. When it comes to GameCube and Wii stuff, you can just use you don't have to even buy like wireless controllers, wireless versions of the controllers. You can actually use the actual hardware. So this is a straight up, just genuine GameCube controller, which you can plug into your PC with the adapter thing that came with the Switch and the Wii U. You can just plug that into your PC. And you can get it working pretty easily in Dolphin. So, and also I've got 2 Mega Drive controllers. I got this one fairly recently. I got this for Christmas. This is this is the standard black controller, but this is like a 90s style, like see-through kind of thing, which I really like. These are good. These aren't the so I know that there were Nintendo Switch versions of the Mega Drive controller. This is not what this is. You know, this is a 6-button version. This is Retro Bits version. It's pretty much the same product. It's pretty much the same as the Switch version, except it's got additional buttons on it. It's got the So for those who don't know, I believe it's only the Japan version that has the 6 buttons. Maybe it came out in the States. I'm not entirely sure, but in Europe we only had like the 3 button control. I'm pretty sure, or maybe the 6 button came out over here and had a limited run. Who knows? But obviously, extra buttons is cool. But also, this is kind of cheaper than this is also cheaper, I believe, than the official like Nintendo Switch one. Only little drawback I've had some trouble trying to get these connected on Bluetooth with this PC. It has some weird. I need to look into it more. I need to like dig into the manuals and stuff. But a lot of it seems like it's up to chance whether it's going to work or not. It works if you plug it in. If you have like a USB cable, then it works fine. That's what I ended up doing the other day when I wanted to play Streets of Rage for the stream because I cannot get it to connect on Bluetooth for some reason, even though it was working fine the other day. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a noob and not knowing how it works properly. But Saturn controller, which I think is also a retro bit controller, which I haven't really used yet. I've never really played any Saturn games, really. I've never owned a Saturn, never knew anyone who had a Saturn. So I'm quite eager to... I've used this a little bit, but only for testing, make sure it works and is compatible with the emulators and stuff. But I'm quite eager to actually give that a go at some point, hopefully soon. I really want to give the Saturn version of Resident Evil 1 a go one day. And finally, like the GameCube, you can, for Wii stuff, you can use like genuine Wii remotes. I got this Mario one and this Peach one. I got them fairly recently, actually. I found them in a local retro shop at very like reasonable price. And like I say, you can use these with a Dolphin bar. They work just like they do on a Wii. It's just really cool. And I'm excited to use these more, actually, because... So these, obviously these are special editions. They look great, but they're also, they've got Wii Motion Plus integrated into them. I've never had one of these controllers. I know they released them like late into the Wii's life, but when Wii Motion Plus first came out, you had to buy those little like, blocky attachments. You had to plug them into the bottom of like the basic Wii remotes. I never got the later ones where it was like built into the thing. And it's obviously it's like a lot less blocky and it's a lot nicer to handle and wield. So that'd be cool to try out. Anyway, that covers consoles. I know I'm going on a bit long here. Give me 1 sec. Respond to a message. So, alright, so that covers console stuff. I'll try not to go as long as I did with the rest of these categories. I think it was worth it with consoles because it had a lot of ground to cover. But so with handheld stuff, same deal pretty much. The majority of these handheld systems are cartridge based, so you can easily have full libraries here. So I've got a full Game Boy set here, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. Now Nintendo DS, this was almost a breaking point in terms of like the rule I set where all cartridge-based systems are basically download the whole library and import it. Because yes, Nintendo DS is a cartridge-based system, and the file sizes aren't too unreasonable, but they're still a lot bigger than the Game Boy libraries. And but not only that, the DS, like the PS2, like the Wii, very popular system. Thousands of games released on it. You can see I've got over 4,000 games on it. And again, going off memory, I believe you're looking at about 250 gigabytes if you want the full DS library like I've got here. And I say it was a breaking point because I started to think, is that in the scale of like a 5 terabyte drive like I've got? Obviously, that's not that much space. But obviously, I've got like all these other systems. I was kind of thinking, is that going to be too much for one system? And it's not really. Like I say, I've got a lot of space left. If you're dealing with a smaller amount of memory, you might not want to grab the whole ROM set. But an easy way around it, you can cut that 250 gigabytes in half easily just by deleting all the Japanese and Europe versions of the games and just keep the US versions. Like for me, it's really nice to have access to all systems. So have access to all different regions, all different versions. Hey, what's up, Prinny? You're the first person who's joined, I think. Welcome. I'm halfway through the tour at the moment. I'd covered console stuff, just going through handhelds. Just explaining how, yeah, you missed a good portion of it, but we still got a lot of ground to cover, and we haven't actually started playing any games yet. So you're not too late. So I was saying, so not only have you got all these games here, you can also, if you right click, you can choose different versions. So if I want to play Pokemon Typing DS, oh, there's only one version of that. Hang on. Let's say we want to play the B movie game. Who doesn't? You can select between Europe, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, US. Basically, there's multiple versions of all these games if you're dealing with a full ROM set like I've got. So if it takes up too much space, you can just delete all of it, because again, it's nice to have all this stuff for archival purposes. It's pretty cool to have every single DS game ever made, but it's not crucial. Let's face it. When am I ever going to use the I very much doubt I'm going to be in dire need of the Japanese version of Bionicle Heroes on DS. So that's, if I ever am hard up for space on this big drive, that's probably where I'm going to make some cuts, is just delete a lot of these like DS files that I don't need. So I was saying, Prinny, that when it comes to cartridge-based stuff, and this goes for a lot of the older consoles, NES, SNES, N64, because they're cartridge-based systems, the file sizes are really small, so it's really, you don't need a lot of space to have like full ROM sets. Which is why a majority of this handheld libraries I've got here are pretty much complete. 3DS is a bit of an exception. Obviously, technically a cartridge-based system, but this is when the file sizes, again, they start to skyrocket. But also, 3DS is kind of like, it's similar to the Xbox thing, where it's still very much being worked on. There's quite a small, I shouldn't say small because it's getting better all the time, but there's only a certain amount of games that work on this. Oh, this is my 3DS eShop library. I've got 3DS and 3DS eShop games, different categories. But so again, like the Xbox, it's a pretty random selection of games here. You can see I don't have like Super Mario Land. I don't have any other Zeldas or anything like that. Maybe I need to check in again. Maybe those games are compatible now, but when I put these games together, these were the games in the 100% compatibility section that seemed most interesting. You got some good stuff here. I've got Mario and Luigi, Etrian Odyssey, and Luigi's Mansion. So it's not too bad. Also, like 3DS stuff isn't a massive priority for me. Like me personally, I've got a hacked 3DS. So I can play any game on it already, and playing it on the original hardware is obviously the way to go. Yes, it is. There we go. That's my bad. I forgot to switch the camera back. It's because I was showing off like controllers earlier. I've got all these retro controllers. Thank you for notifying me of that, because I do forget to check OBS a lot. So yeah, my apologies. Here's the Launchbox library. What else were you saying? Trace Memory is a great game. That was called Another Code over here. Yeah, I remember I bought that when it came out on launch. I think I bought it because I was about to go on a holiday and I wanted a game to sort of travel with. And definitely don't regret that decision. That was a great game. Also got PSP. The emulator that uses this PPSSPP is really good. Pretty sure it's got the majority of the library working. So I just went ham with this and just downloaded every sort of interesting PSP game that I could find. There's a lot in here. There's still probably more I could include, but this is not a bad starting point, I think. And like the Dolphin, I like how the PSP emulator sharpens everything up to HD. Oh, what's his favourite game? What, the Trace Memory? Because if so, it's a good choice. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Did you or Josh ever play the sequel on Wii? I know I believe it only came out in Europe, but yeah, I really like the Wii sequel as well. I was really sad. I forget what the studio's called now. They made because they made Hotel Dusk as well. You didn't know there's a sequel, right? Hold on, 1 second. I'm pretty sure I have it. Here it is. Another Code R. Only released in Europe, I believe. Yeah, Sync. Because I think they made Hotel Dusk as well. They made some really good games, and they shut down like years ago. There's not many screenshots in this. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's blurry. These are all the screenshots and the images and stuff that come with the default settings. A bit hit and miss because it's all community generated, but it's pretty cool that you can just open up images for each game and get a sense of what the game is. Yeah, this sequel is really good. Yeah, you should play it. Especially as like I was saying earlier, like Dolphin emulation is so good. I was saying as well earlier, I've got when I was going through the controllers, like obviously you can use actual Wii remotes and nunchucks. So I picked these up recently, Mario and Peach ones with the oh, what's up, Backer? You made it finally. Yeah, Ashley's pretty hot. But yeah, no, it's great now that you can actually use like proper hardware with proper controllers with Dolphin and Wii games. All you need is get yourself a Dolphin bar, which is like the Wii sensor bar, but a version you can plug into your PC via USB. And it works like it's really easy to set up and use in Dolphin. So, but anyway, back to handheld. So covered all the Nintendo stuff. Got a few like obscure systems here, like the Lynx. Sure, obviously I haven't had any experience with this. Wonder Swan, I believe, is like a Japan only system, so obviously I've never played any of those. But the libraries for these are quite small, so they're quite inoffensive. They're not overbearing on the entire library. On Game Gear as well, another system I never touched. Like, yeah, everyone I knew growing up had a Game Boy. I don't think I knew anyone who had a Game Gear. These are all systems I've never even seen on. Oh, what's up, Steph? How are you doing? Everyone's coming in now. Nice to see you all. What we're playing? We're not playing anything just yet. Just finishing up the tour right now. So I've gone over all the console stuff. I'm currently in handhelds. I'm just basically just showing off my big collection. But yeah, in a bit I'll take some requests as a thanks for you guys for listening to me ramble on about this big collection and all these retro games. I'll let you decide what I want to play, and we can also use the randomizer. It's like I was saying earlier. So Launchbox has a random button. It'll choose a game for you, and I was thinking it might be fun to do that for a bit. Just play 5 minutes of any game that it throws up. We'll see. What was I going to say? There's one last bit I wanted to go over the handhelds. Oh, the Game & Watch stuff. So I showed Prinny this the other day, but I did just say I wasn't going to go into any games yet, but I'm making a small exception here because I think this is really cool. This is another like really late edition because I didn't even think, for some reason, I didn't even think it was possible to like emulate Game & Watch games. I think because they're LCD systems, they're not like on cartridges. It just didn't enter my brain that you could actually emulate these games. I don't know why. It's clearly not impossible, but. And here's where I want you guys to let me know if the volume levels are off once we enter a game here. Also, I need to set my controller up. Bear with. Is DS4 Windows on? Yes, it is. Alright, there we go. Yeah, so I was showing off loads of controllers earlier, but I'm not going to switch between them. I'm just going to be using a DualShock for tonight and probably most of the retro streams. So, let me load it up again. So this is running in RetroArch right now. Oh, why is it not working? Oh, that's really annoying. I think it might be because I was messing with the Wii remotes earlier. Hold on, give me a second. That's why. No. Device type. Oh, now it's working. There we go. Except, sorry, bear with. I've got to configure these controls. Technical difficulties, but it is my first stream, so there we go. It should work now. There you go. Yeah, I just thought this was really cool, just because it's not like other emulators. It shows, it has like a full overlay of the actual system itself, which is like, I think it's really cool. You can zoom it in as well. I don't mean you can do it on this one because it's got two screens, but a lot of the Game & Watch stuff I tested, you can have it so like the full LCD screen fills the screen, but yeah, you can pretty much, and you can see as well when I'm pressing the buttons, it's like actually animated on the actual overlay as well. And obviously these games are really old and really primitive, but this definitely like enhances the experience, I think. Anyway, that was a lot of faff and a lot of setup for just that, but I felt like I wanted to show that off. Anyway, how are you all doing? I don't think I ever asked that. How is everyone? Before I move on to the next sort of category. I think we'll move on to computers next. So, like I was saying earlier, consoles and handheld stuff really easy to get into. These are all where the really popular systems are. Therefore, they've had a lot. These emulators have had a lot of work done on them, made them really easy to use and really accessible. Computers is where it gets a bit more advanced. So we're dealing. So a lot of these are like old computer systems from the 80s and 90s. Got the Amstrad, Atari ST, some Commodore systems. So the big omission here is Commodore 64, which, but the reason for that is it has its own category up here, C64 Dreams, which I'll get into in a bit. And like I was saying earlier with the Atari in the consoles bit, even though I can easily have full ROM sets for these, and it wouldn't take up any space at all. I've gone online and searched for top 100 lists, just because I don't have any nostalgia for these systems. So it's like I kind of want my first impressions of all these systems to be a positive one. I don't want to sift through hundreds of games like that will most likely be rubbish. So I've only got 98 Amstrad games in here. I need to add another 2. But Atari ST, Commodore, MSX I only just started recently, which is why there's only a couple games in there. MS-DOS, obviously, these are all just loads of 90s PC games. Same with Scum VM. I've only got 1 game in here at the moment. The top priority, which is Beavis and Butthead. Got the Sharp X68000, which I think is another Japan-only system. And so the Spectrum is, out of all these systems I've gone over so far, this is the only one I'm still having a bit of an issue with. I've got these games running, they're working fine, but I can't get them working with a controller for some reason. It works fine with a keyboard. I was playing a bit of Death Chase the other day with the keyboard, and I was having some fun with that. It's a good game, but yeah, haven't imported 100 games on this yet. I'm more focused on trying to get them to work. I might end up just going on Reddit or some forum or something to try and get some help. But so that's computers. So I was saying earlier, like these compared to like console stuff, these take a bit more figuring out probably because they're not as in demand in the emulation scene. A lot of the emulators aren't as refined and easy to use. A lot of these work in RetroArch, which helps. Some of them don't. Atari ST was a bit of a bastard to get running. And there's some additional steps you need to take. A lot of these systems you need like to acquire BIOS files, and you need to do some weird file directory setups and stuff. It's not impossible though. I would say consoles and handheld stuff very easy to get going if you ever want to give Launchbox and emulation a try. Computers is probably what I'd call intermediate. So, so this here, C64 Dreams. This is a custom playlist. So all these other ones, arcade, computers, consoles, handhelds. These are all default categories basically that Launchbox sets up for you. Cool thing about Launchbox is it's fully customizable, so you can like mess with the setup. You can rename all these. I don't see any sense in it, obviously. Like, it makes sense, consoles and console names underneath it, so I don't need to mess with that. But originally I wanted to just have Commodore 64 in computers like you would expect, but the problem is Commodore 64 emulation is really kind of overwhelming. So first of all, like, I always knew that it was a system that was known for having a massive library of games. I didn't know the full scale of that library until quite recently. I watched a video on it, and the way the guy explained it. So there's 30,000 games on that system alone. So if you put together the NES, SNES, N64, I think GameCube, PS1, Mega Drive, Master System, and Dreamcast, I'm pretty sure it's 8 different consoles. So if you took all those libraries, combined them all together, and then tripled them, you'd still end up with less games than what the Commodore 64 has. So it's like, what do you even do with where do you even start with a library that size? I don't want 30,000 Commodore 64 games clogging up my library. I don't even know if it's possible to acquire all those games. From what I know, from what I can tell, there like a complete ROM set of the Commodore 64 doesn't really exist, because, well, how do you make that happen? You know. So it was a weird thing where it's like some ROM sets. So I wanted to do the top 100 thing where I'd look up top 100 games of Commodore, and throw those in and start there. But I found that a lot of these ROM sets, some of these ROM sets were just lacking. They just simply didn't have some of the best Commodore 64 games on there. They had a lot of stuff missing, so I was like, oh, this is incomplete. I'll find something else. Then there was like some ROM sets that were quite comprehensive, but a bit too comprehensive. They'd have like 60 versions of the same game. It's like, oh my god, which ones work and which ones don't? Which ones do I need? Especially because this era of games like Commodore stuff, a lot of it came on tapes, and there was a lot of piracy back in the 80s with those systems, those early systems. A lot of games were like shared on tapes, and they had the original games had like a lot of protection software to stop people doing that, but people got around it by cracking the software, and so all those pirated versions, all those versions with the cracked intros and all the custom stuff, that's all present in some of these big ROM sets, like especially the Tosec ROM set. And again, it's just it's more hassle than it's worth, just sifting through all those games, trying to figure out which works and what doesn't. Anyway, rambled quite a bit there, but basically, that's when I struggled to figure out what to do with it with Commodore 64. I almost gave up on it, but it was like, can't have a big collection like this and not have Commodore 64. And that's when I found C64 Dreams, which is a project put together by this wonderful person. I think his name's Zombeaver. That's his username. I can't remember his real name. I can't remember if he's made his real name public or anything. But Zombeaver and C64 Dreams, shout out to him and this project, because he has painstakingly gone through the whole library of or he is still going through. It's an ongoing project. He's going through all these thousands of games, picking out the best ones, selecting which ones he feels are crucial for you to play, and he's put them all in this big C64 Dreams collection. Not only that, he's made it so that he's put custom bindings on all these games individually. So the other big barrier with Commodore emulation is obviously these games were run from a old Commodore keyboard and mouse, and there's no consistency at all. Basically, some games use a joypad, which makes it a bit easier to figure out, but a lot of them use like random keys. And none of these games have like what you get in games now. You don't have in-game tutorials. You had to rely on the manual. So he's customized all these games so it's playable with a controller. So I can use my DualShock wherever I put it. Oh, there it is. And launch any one of these games, at least in theory, and start playing and be able to figure out pretty easy. He's also implemented all the manuals, like there's shortcuts you can press to bring up the manual, and little like there's a customized like graphic he's made that you can pull up anytime that tells you all the controls and stuff. He's also thrown in like tons of old Commodore magazines. This is like a massive labor of love, as you can tell. He's thrown in loads of demo scene like software, which I think is like not necessarily games, but weird like bits of software and programs people have made on the Commodore. Disc mags, I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think it's just like virtual magazines or something. But you can see like he's so in the games section, he's got 3,500 games, and he's still going through the rest of the 25 plus thousand of them. And he's got these best of playlists as well. And he's got these other playlists if you want to play RPGs and shmups, text adventures. He's made it so that all of this stuff is like really accessible if you've never played C64 stuff before, which I haven't. And it's really made it it's really taken the big overwhelming element out of it for me and made a lot of this stuff really accessible. So I think I'm probably so the other thing as well is this project he's set it all up in Launchbox for you. This is a Launchbox setup you can just download. It's a fairly big RAR file, but it's all packaged for you. It all runs straight from the go. You don't need to install anything or set anything up. He's done it all. So I basically I thought about just having it as its own different, separate, standalone Launchbox setup, but then eventually I just decided to integrate it into my existing setup. So I think I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna delete all these playlists for now, the magazine stuff and the demo scene stuff. 3,500 games is enough for me to get stuck into for the time being. I think it would, I'm probably not gonna dig into these magazines. It would help if I actually played some Commodore games before that, but just the fact that he's thrown it in there is just seriously cool. So, all right, last section then, last little bit, and then we'll play some games. I'll show off the fancy big box mode. Then we'll play some games. Are any of you guys still active? I haven't seen the chat like move lately. Let me know if anyone's still there. But so arcade. Save this one for last because, like I say, consoles, handhelds, easy. The computer stuff's intermediate. This arcade stuff is pretty advanced. It took me a long time to figure out. So basically, these are all arcade games. So these are all games that you'd walk into an arcade, and these are all like individual machines. And some big group out there has collected all these machines and ripped the ROM files and software and whatnot Hey Josh, how you doing? I was going to say, like, has I was getting paranoid that I'd gone offline or the chat had stopped working or something because everyone's gone silent for so long. But good to see you. You caught me at the near the end of the tour. Um, I've covered all these categories here. I'm just going over arcade at the moment. But we're going to start playing some games. You know what? I have something you might like in a minute because I came across a weird Zelda homebrew game. Don't let me forget. After I go over big box mode, I will play it and I'll show you guys. I shouldn't hype it up too much. It's not that exciting, but I thought it was cool. Anyway, arcade stuff. So these are all, like I say, these are all games you'd catch um, in an arcade. These are all individual machines that some people have ripped and shared online. The group and the emulator name is called MAME, MAME, and the reason why this is the arcade emulation is hard to get into and hard to understand and hard to get working is because, well, the first problem is arcade as a platform. It's not like all the other systems we've gone over, like all the consoles, handhelds, computers and stuff. They all obviously had a life cycle. Most consoles last for about 5 to 6 years, maybe 9 years if you're something like the Game Boy or the 360, but they have a limited lifespan. Um, we cycle through generations, and therefore they have a limited amount of games. With arcade, you're talking it's a big umbrella term. We're talking about games that have been present since the 70s to the present day. So obviously you're dealing with a silly amount of games. You're talking about thousands of different arcade games. So if you were to download the entire main ROM set and import it into this library, you'd have tens of thousands of games, and it would make the collection a complete mess. So you're forced to curate it really, especially because I'd estimate at least half those games just don't work. They just straight up, as is the nature of emulation, more games are being made compatible and working over time. But when you're dealing with this sheer amount of games, obviously you're going to get a lot that just haven't been figured out yet or just won't work. You've also got games that technically work, they run, but you can't feasibly or reasonably play them on a PC because a lot of these games don't rely on a joystick and buttons. You'd walk into an arcade and you'll see like games controlled by a trackball or a light gun or some weird peripheral that maybe if you're really smart you can configure them to work for you on a PC, but most of the time it's not worth the hassle when it's in some cases probably not possible. Then you've also got like thousands of games that are just crap basically. I mean, you're going to be dealing with like hundreds of maybe thousands of clones of popular games like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, when you really only want one version. You only want the proper version. And so it's like, what do you do? So where do you even start with this? And what I did, I found, again, I relied on another wonderful person or group of people online who made this curated set of arcade games. And so basically, it's been a while since I've done this, but from what I remember, so I downloaded a full MAME set, and then I downloaded this small series of files. It's a project called All Killer No Filler, I think, and it's basically you drop these batch files into your main ROM set, and you run it, and it pulls all the curated games out of that ROM set and into a folder, and then basically you can just import these 589 games into Launchbox. On top of that, like, that obviously makes the whole process of choosing which arcade games you want a lot easier. On top of that, MAME is a little bit difficult to figure out compared to a lot of other emulators. If you've never used it before, it's a bit overwhelming for me, but I figured it out, so it's definitely not impossible. And again, I'm relying on someone else's judgment. I'm taking someone else's word that these are the best arcade games out there. But it's a pretty good list. I've gone through it before, and it's got like the Turtles game, it's got the Simpsons arcade game, it's got the Punisher arcade game. One game it didn't have, which I was kind of surprised wasn't in here, was Outrun, which is kind of strange because Outrun's like an iconic arcade game. Maybe they left it out because Outrun has tons of ports. I probably got like loads of superior versions in it in these consoles and computers categories, but yeah, it's pretty good. Is if nothing else, is a pretty good starting point. Like at some point, I might do more research into what a lot of into some other like decent MAME games and grow the collection from there. That's pretty much it. Let's have a look at big box mode. Oh, there now you can see my Resident Evil wallpaper. It'll take a couple minutes to load. So, if you guys are still watching, again, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me ramble on for honestly way too long about this. I was supposed to. In my head, I thought I'd get through this in about half an hour, but I've gone about over an hour, looks like so. But have a think. What do you want me to play now? What keywords do you want me to search into Launchbox? Do you have any specific games in mind that you want me to play for a bit? Any series that you want me to play? Any particular system consoles I could hit the random button on? Have a think and send me some requests. So this is big box mode, which is kind of like, for those of you who use Steam, it's kind of like big picture mode. And this is what you get with the premium version of Launchbox. And like the rest of Launchbox, this is... oh good, you guys still are there. I keep thinking that I've either cut out or everyone's just disappeared. But anything is good. All right, we'll have a look in a minute then. So like everything else in Launchbox, this is fully customizable. There's loads of different like themes and stuff you can use in big box mode. This is one that I particularly like. I like how simple and like minimalistic it is. I think this theme is called color mode, or colors or something. And you can see all the backgrounds are like different colors. It's getting really dark in here, so I'm going to turn the lamp on. Is that better? That's a bit better. I also really like this theme because you can actually see the systems in the little videos here, which I like looking at. I like when it comes to these old systems, these old Atari stuff, for example, that I never owned. A lot of them look like wild. I've had a little look around at the different themes and stuff. I honestly need to dig into it more. This is one that I quite like for now, at least until I explore some more. There's Launchbox has a whole forum of themes you can browse through as well. It has loads included, like by default you can switch between, and this is one of those default themes. For good reason, I think, because I quite like it, like I say. But some of the themes and some of the videos and stuff are like wild. It's not like what you have here is like quite minimalistic and simple. It's like you can have videos that have graphics and sprites and characters and all sorts flying across the screen. I look at those floppy disks, that square mouse. I remember I briefly had some experience with floppy disks because in my first school, in my primary school, we used them. I think in the early years of my middle school as well, we used floppy disks on old computers. That's a weird one, the Vectrex with the vertical screen. Oh yeah, I think I did say earlier I was going to delete the magazine playlist, but I did quite like that someone made a video and a whole section for magazines, because I think a lot of Launchbox users actually do this. I think because the thing with Launchbox is it's intended for retro games, but you don't have to use it for games. You can use it for all kinds of stuff. You can use it for magazines and books. You can use it for like movies and videos, TV shows, any sort of digital media, any sort of files. Because all Launchbox does essentially is grab a file and point it to a program and sort of automates the whole process for you and plays it. So you can quite easily grab like loads of PDF files, which is something I'm actually kind of thinking of doing. It's a project for another day, maybe, but I might just get myself loads of retro magazines off the archive and browse through them. Might be another series of streams that I do, but getting ahead of myself, obviously. I've only just started streaming today, so anyway, you get the idea. That's big box mode. It's pretty cool. It's obviously it's designed for you to put on your TV. You can use and you can navigate it with a controller. It's a good way to show off your big retro collection to friends or guests. The only small criticism I have with Launchbox and Big Box is the randomizer feature that I mentioned earlier. It's you can't use it within Big Box mode, which is a shame because I would use Big Box in every stream if I could, but you can only use the randomizer thing in the desktop mode. Some of this needs fixing as well. You can see like WiiWare and Super Graphics, they don't have like proper logos like the rest of these categories do, but that can be easily fixed. But yeah. Alright then, let's play some games.